And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China!
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China! All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China!
Russian.
Russia!
Italian.
Italy!
German.
Germany!
Swedish.
Sweden!
Korean.
Korea!
Egyptian.
Egypt!
Nigerian.
Nigeria!
Black.
Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
The lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. They want us to sell our souls to barter profit. Like God's property, it's hard to market. So we steady to aim, keep your eyes on target. 'Cause when you got to drive, yeah, they'd rather you park it. But I don't valet, you ain't getting these keys. I'm keeping closed hands, I'm on bended knee. I'm just a reflection, dealing with 8 sections. Art mixed with life, you can feel the convection. You lying won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the lion won't sleep tonight. 'Cause we woke now, and we woke now. I said the
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew. You understand what I'm saying? We are Jew. So cool out. Until you do your facts, until you really do the facts with the fake indoctrination that y'all pull into the schools and all that, you know what I'm saying? We're not following y'all rules.
Assalamualaikum. In the 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler traces the origin of Eastern Europe's Jewish population that was largely decimated by the Nazi onslaught during the Second World War. Through extensive research, he discusses the history of a trading empire that was set up by a tribe known as the Khazars. The Khazar Empire was located between the expanding power blocks of Christianity and Islam, and the people were converted to Judaism by their king as a way of standing apart from both. The Khazarians and their wealth were dispersed through the countries of Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Khazar Empire. The Khazarians were not a Semitic people, that they called themselves Jews after their conversion to Judaism is as absurd as the Chinese Muslims calling themselves Arabs.
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean. DNA testing to prove Jewish ancestry is a hot-button political issue in Israel, For example, Israel's chief rabbinate has pushed for the ancestry DNA tests to be allowed to prove Jewishness in certain cases. In particular, many Jews have emigrated to Israel from the Soviet Union who may not have had the necessary paperwork that shows they are Jewish, have sought to get genetic tests done to show they are Jews. In 2019, a political scandal erupted when it appeared Russian Jews were secretly submitting DNA tests to the rabbinate in order to obtain the right to move to Israel.
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
You can convert to Judaism. You can't convert to a blood family. You cannot convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
They're not Semites at all. They're not.
You know, the DNA tests that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews.
Without getting too semantic, or at the risk of getting too semantic, does it matter that the Jews are not Semites, or does this phrase anti-Semitism just means hatred for the Jewish people? They're Ashkenazi, they're Eastern European Jews.
And so when he's saying he's coming to redeem, while he would say, redeem Israel, O God, out of all their troubles. First thing they need to be redeemed at, more dangerous than Hamas, more dangerous than Muslim neighbors, are internal, these, and there's another biblical name, these who say they are Jews and are not.
I was going to ask you about that in Revelation 3:8. I think I was going to ask you that question. Does that refer to this time, or can it refer to this time?
It can. It's Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie.
Yeah.
And there's a different application for it, but we understand this is really there's a practical storyline I've shared before on a program maybe a year ago, I don't know, about the Khazarian mafia and the Khazarian Jews, and I'll just say the briefest understanding of it and how this applies to them, because
I just had a rabbi give me an analogy. He said, look, imagine you left your home and then someone came and occupied it, and then you try to get it back, and then they went to the judge. Have you heard some of these analogies? Maybe you can.
Yeah, that's assuming that, you know, that's taking it into a place which I don't usually go. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
That's what the Zionists did, except instead of a baseball team, they went to try to convince the Jews that the Jewish people are a nation, like France and like Spain. We'll get a land, that's Israel, that's our stadium. We'll get baseball bats and balls, we'll create a language. They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. They sat down to create a language. They sat down to create a language. They sat down to create a language.
Anyone ever heard of the word anti-Semitic? What's that mean? What does that mean? Against who? Against the who? Say it one more time. Against the who? If you're anti-Semitic, you're against Jews. Where'd that come from? You know, anti-Semitic, the word only goes back to the late 1800s. As it relates to being anti-Jewish. Now, Okay, now, don't throw your rocks at me. But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic? But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude, okay? Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people, like Kanye was right.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said,
no, we don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews?
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. With the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah, with
the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
This world and the next world are asymmetrical. The next world is where the majority of a person's actions, which determine his identity, are compensated. For the righteous, they exist in the world to come and they're rewarded. And for those whose major complexion is black, are excluded from the world to come.
We're going to take back our country, and we're going to make Israel great again, and we're going to make Israel great again.
And we're going to make Israel great again.
We're going to make America great again. We're going to make them both great again, greater than ever before. They don't pay rent. The city doesn't have it's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. It'll end immediately. We are the
saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring, and what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have, yeah.
That's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the
you
game
wouldn't have
theory
done
I'm
that.
talking
You
about.
wouldn't have. You
No,
wouldn't
and
have done
that's
that
not,
before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't
That's
have done
not
that
who I
before.
am. That's
No.
not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has
But
created.
I'm
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you. If you repeat this fact, they can't laugh at you.
All right, let's try this again. Can you guys hear me? My apologies. Can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, type 1. All right, can you guys hear me? All right, I'm starting to see some ones. Great, great. All right, want to say peace and blessings to you guys. Hope and pray all is well with you guys. Hope and pray that you guys had a great Shabbat. And what I was saying is that initially I wasn't going to do a live today. I went on to schedule this at the last minute, probably a couple of hours ago. I was going to redo the lesson I did last night about the wilderness. I was going to teach that, but then add more to it. The full details of the presentation, like dealing with Revelation chapter 12, some of the questions that I was asked, and I didn't have all of that inside the presentation. So I was going to do that. And so we may do that tomorrow. But what I wanted to deal with tonight is DEI, right? You guys heard how Donald Trump, his comments about DEI, and, and I just don't want to just talk about DEI. I just want to talk about these different governmental programs that are out there that created a dependency on them by our people. That's really what I want to talk about. DEI is not going to be the main focus of the conversation, but I want to use Deuteronomy 28 and show how what the Most High, warns us about as part of the consequences, right, that will happen for breaking His law, statutes, and commandments. And so that's what I really want to deal with. I don't really want to deal with the whole DEI stuff, but all of that will tie in to where I'm going to go at with this. But I uploaded a video earlier this week, and I took it down. Well, it's still in the unlisted, but I was going to extend it and add some of these additional clips to it to show that Donald Trump, when he mentioned DEI with the pilots, those were things that was being tossed around. Those things were being discussed. Like when you think about DEI, oftentimes it's in the negative tense, and it's they attach it to our people, just like what you heard the guy Charlie Kirk. He made a controversial statement almost 2 years ago, and others were echoing that sentiment about if he goes on an airplane and he hits turbulence, in a nutshell, he hoped that it's not a black guy, you know what I mean? A black person that's flying the plane by way of DEI. And family, that's just an ignorant statement that in itself. Because if you really understand, even just understanding the qualifications and things that pilots go through, air traffic controllers go through, they have to go through a series of tests, and they don't just jump up in the pulpit behind a plane and say, because you're this skin complexion, you could go ahead and fly. You don't even though you may not have the aptitude. No, you have to pass exams. You have to go through the whole 9 with that, right? But again, when you hear not just Donald Trump, but others use the term DEI, they are, in most cases, they are referring to our people. And truth be told, most can't even define what DEI is. We know it's dealing with diversity, right? And it's supposed to kind of attach itself to the civil rights and some of the other laws that dealt with, being discriminated against. But truth be told, when we think about all the bills that supposedly been directed for us, right? For example, the Civil Rights Bill. Guess what? When you read the civil rights laws, you don't see anything about a Negro there. You don't see anything about black there or colored, right? You don't see any of that. You see, of course, race, creed. You'll see that religion. But you don't see anything about Negro or black, right? Every bill that was made for other communities, they list in there, like the hate crime bill. You'll see Asian listed in there. When you look at the bills that came up that Congress created for the Jewish community, guess what? They have Jew in there, right? And when you look at the Emmett Till bill, right? The Emmett Till bill is supposed to be, the lynching laws, to protect our people who's still being lynched up to this day, this very day. Guess what? When you read the bill, guess what? You don't see anything that mentions Negro, right? So, and Chris Curry, I want to say this: the DEI is all connected to that affirmative action. When you do the research on it, I did the research on it to see if is that an actual law. Well, no, it's something that developed as far as diversity that started with what's his name? I put some notes here. Let me pull it up real quick. When we start looking at diversity, because diversity, actually, the discussion of diversity started in the 1960s. But let me see, who was the one? Lyndon B. Johnson. That's what I was trying to remember. So just some notes here. The U.S. government early formal support for DEI initiatives can be traced to Executive Order 11246, signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965, which mandated affirmative action to ensure equal employment opportunities in federal contracting. However, modern DEI policies gained significant traction in 2021 when President Joe Biden signed Executive Order 13985, titled Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Undeserved Communities Throughout the Federal Government. And so remember, 2 years ago, if you just look it up, you can look it up. 2 years ago, when you understand what happened with the DEI, right? Not DEI, affirmative action, a group of Asians went to court, right? To remove the affirmative actions from educational institutions because they complained, stating that affirmative action has allowed our community to get accepted, let's just say at Harvard University, with lower scores than theirs. Right? So that's the whole purpose when we start really understanding that. So that when he went to the Supreme Court removed that, saying that no college institution can use affirmative action to far as to like a quota system to make sure you ensure that you have a minimum amount of people from our community at least going to their university, right? So when you look at DEI, right, DEI, diversity, all of that evolved. So in 2020, what was it, 2021? Is that what I said? 2021? Yeah, 2021. That's when Biden created the executive order. Now, truth be told, everyone benefits from all the laws that was written for us. Look it up. So many people don't even know the Asian community was actually benefiting from affirmative action. If you look at the Civil Rights Bill, the Jewish community, as we know them, and other communities benefited from the Civil Rights Bill. The homosexuals, right, the pronoun group, they benefited from the laws, the civil rights laws that was created. So no matter how we look at it, and I just don't want to get into a thing of just saying what group of people benefited from it, but I can say when we deal with DEI from the negative tense, who do you hear they directing their comments to? It's to our community. When you heard President Trump mention DEI and blamed it on DEI for the reason why, for the reasons behind the tragic accident with the plane collision, right there, I believe it was a helicopter, military helicopter, and a commercial plane crashed. He blamed it on DEI. In a nutshell, was blaming it on our people. See, when you hear them use terms like insinuating the aptitude, education, not being intelligent, those are things that was that you're I would say our oppressors, right? These racist people thought about our people. They viewed us as being dumb. They viewed us as being illiterate. They viewed us as being animals, beasts, that we weren't smart. Go back and look at blackface. Look at the old cartoons back in the 50s, the 40s and 50s. Look at how we were depicted. Beady eyes, big nose, big lips. So I want to make sure you guys understand, family. And I'm not just focusing on DEI. I'm focusing on all the laws that were supposedly written for our community, was written in a way to benefit everyone else. Look at the hate crime. I mean, not the hate crime. Look at the civil rights bill. Look it up. It doesn't list Negro. It doesn't list black in there. But again, when you look at the hate crime bill that was created about 4 or 5 years ago because of what was happening to the Asian community, guess what? You have Asians listed right in there. When you look at the bills that was written for the Jewish community, you have Jewish written in it. But when you look at the Emmett Till bill, you don't have you don't have black, you don't have Negro, you don't have nothing that make any references to us. But the way that is written in a way that all can benefit from it. All. A gay and lesbian person can say that somebody tried to lynch them. Anyone can use that lynching law for their benefits, but guess what? Every bill that was supposedly created for our people was written in a way to benefit everyone else. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that, family. So I'm not getting into I'm not really getting into the weeds with trying to see who who benefited from it and all that other stuff. I'm not getting into all of that. But I will say, when you hear the negativity behind it, who is it? Who are they directing it to? So I'm going to play these 2 clips again and tell me if they're referring to women, right? Or are they referring to our community, pointing the fingers on that situation that occurred? Let me play the 2 clips. So that's why I just want to make sure, guys, we understand that I just don't want us to get into the weeds of who benefited from it. We know that other communities benefit from bills that were supposedly written for our community. We know that. Whether it's affirmative action, because guess what? You have affirmative action allow Caucasians to do what? Go to HBCUs. Right? Look it up. I mean, but anyway, but I want to deal with the negative thing. And I don't want to just deal with DEI, but I want to deal with affirmative action. I want to deal with all these so-called bills that was written for our people, and I want to really show what the scripture says about why we shouldn't be dependent on these things. That's the point I want to make. I really don't care about all these different programs. What I care about is, how do we move forward as a people and not be dependent on these different programs, right? Because there was a calculated effort to make it so that way we are dependent on these programs. Go ahead and go back and look. I encourage you guys to watch the movie Claudine. Claudine, starring James Earl Jones and Diane, I think Carroll. They starred in this movie, and you'll see how she was on welfare. And this is the true, family. When you study how the welfare system was applied, right, towards our community, the woman, the mother, could not have a man in her life, right? She couldn't receive any gifts, anything. So when the caseworker comes over, they would inspect their home to make sure that she's not getting any assistance from or in any relationship with anyone. And that's how they were. That was basically the standard for receiving those benefits. What's the other one that the administration said that they're going to cut? Section 8. You got a lot of our brothers and sisters that been on Section 8. I got relatives that have been on Section 8 for 30 years. Living it up. 30 years. Section 8 wasn't designed to be a long-term assistance program, but nevertheless, you got people that have been on Section 8 for 30 years. And many of them are living better than many of us. Only paying $30, $40, $50 a month for rent. And many of them are getting kicked out for not even paying that. Anyway, let me leave that alone. So I want to make it clear, family. I'm not here to debate these different programs, but I do want to show you the scriptures where we're not supposed to be so dependent on it that we're looking at these systems as if it's a form of salvation to us. I'm going to show the scriptures for that. So let's start with this first clip again. I'm going to play again what Trump said about DEI, and then I'm going to follow up with Charlie Kirk or what he said about DEI, and that's the narrative, behind. You'll understand the narrative of why Trump mentioned DEI with the plane crashes. All right, but let's start with Trump again.
Saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring, and what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior. And that's what we're going to have, yeah.
That's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now thinking about that.
You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
So that's why I want to share with you that Charlie Kirk video, because that's the context behind DEI, and that's why Donald Trump said what he said. Right. So all of them, when I say all of them, all these different groups are coming at our community. Can't get around it. That's why Donald Trump said what he said about DEI, and he alluded to aptitude, having to, do the psychological evaluations and all these different things. See, family, they are taking everything that was, even things that was positive for our community, like the term woke. You see how they hijacked the term woke? Woke was a term that was used within our community that's making it clear that we are what? We are aware of the political, the politics, and all those different things that are suppressing our community. But now they took woke and made woke, both sides taking the term woke and attached it to the LGBTQRSTUW, community. They attached it to everything that's not everything, from the feminist movement, all of that. They put woke on it. Have you guys noticed that? They took the very thing that was positive for our community, hijacked it, and now woke is like a negative term that's associated with all those different things. So let's get into this, because again, I just want to make sure you guys understand. I'm not here trying to
debate DEI and all that other stuff. I'm not. But what I am going to show you is what the scripture says about not being as a people. We're the Israelites. We're the Israelites. And I'm going to show you what the scripture says to the Israelites. To the Israelites about not being dependent or looking for these different programs or systems of men to be a type of savior or bringing salvation to us. So let me explain here. Let me stretch this screen out. Let me break this down. All right, let me go ahead and switch over here. Actually, before we get started, let me pin this up because I get asked this a lot, and in many cases I forget. So let me pin up. All right, let's see here. Let me pin up our Cash App. And I want to encourage you guys, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share the video, because this week here, YouTube is going through their thing with this shadow banning type thing. They've been not sharing. They've been unsubscribing subscribers. They've been doing a lot. They've taken down videos. They've been doing a lot to the channel. So they've been doing a lot to try to suppress the views on this channel. So, but let me go ahead and post this real quick. All right. All right, here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I just want to post this up inside the channel. All right, let's get into it, family. Deuteronomy 28, DEI warning to the Israelites. DEI to all the Israelites, and not just DEI, but all these so-called governmental programs like welfare and these different bills. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to let you see what the scripture says, and we're going to break it down. Exodus chapter 1, verse 7. We're going to start here. It reads, "And the children of Israel were fruitful, parah, and increased abundantly, sharat, and multiplied, rabbah, and waxed exceeding, ma'ad, mighty, atzam, and the land was filled with them." Let me read it one more time. The children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. So again, increased abundantly, multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty. So who are these slaves, family? Who are these slaves that is being mentioned in Exodus chapter 1, the passage I just read? Those slaves are our ancestors. Those slaves are Negroes. Let's prove it. This is coming from Crania Aegyptica by Samuel George Morton, page 66. This is what he says about the Egyptians, over 700 craniums that he analyzed. And this is pretty much his conclusions, right? If it be allowable to make these data the basis of calculation for the past 35 centuries, it will follow that upwards of 10 millions of Negroes have been brought as bondsmen into Egypt during that period. He goes on to say, the vast influx of Negroes into the valley of the Nile must necessarily have left its impressions on the physical traits of the Egyptians themselves in modern times, as seen in the Copts and more distant periods, as proved by the Negroid heads, in which both the configuration and expression are too obvious to be. to be mistaken. But it may be inquired, how does it happen that Negroes or their descendants should be found in the catacombs if they constitute a menial or slave caste in Egypt? Right? Then we skip over to page 66 and we read in this bullet right here. That's bullet 8. Right? Notice what it says. It says, Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it is now, or that it now is, that of servants and slaves. So he's saying that the indentured servants as well as the slaves in Egypt, they were Negroes. And we proved that, and he said tens of millions. And we see that with reading the scriptures. It said that the Israelites multiplied. They was all through the land of Egypt, right? They grew, right? And another interesting thing I want to read here, just to point out, let me see here. I want to point out one other thing here. Let me zoom it in. You see where it says here, besides these sources of population, the Egyptian race was at different periods modified by the influx of the Caucasian nations of Asia, Europe, Pelasgi, or Hellenes, Scythians, and Phoenicians. All right. So it's telling you that how the nations were being, these different nations were coming in and raiding Egypt. But here's the key that I want to point out. The national characteristics of all these families of men are distinctly figured on the monuments, and all of them excepting the Scythians and Phoenicians have been identified in the catacombs. So the Scythians are connected to the Ashkenazi Jews, right? Or the Ashkenaz, right? And it's saying that they didn't find any craniums, they didn't find any bones or skeletons in the catacombs of Egypt, but they found Negroes. They made it clear that let me move my mouse over. They made it clear that the whole area was saturated with us. Didn't say anything about this, them. As you see, it says they didn't find any craniums of Scythians or Scythians, right? So how can they say that they're from that territory? So many different layers that we could go into to prove who are not the people and who is the people. All right, so I just want to point that out to you. All right, let me clear my throat real quick. All right. Okay, so again, Negroes were numerous in Egypt, but their social position in ancient times was the same that it now is, that of servants and slaves. And I know you guys heard this before, coming from the naysayers. You say that you're Israel and YAHAWAH Elohim is going to bring you into Egypt again. Then why are you in the U.S. and not in Egypt? Excuse me. Should have brought me some water in here. Next clip I play, I run to get me some water. My throat is getting dry. All right. So it says, you say that you're Israel and YAHAWAH Elohim is going to bring you into Egypt again. Then why are you in the U.S. and not in Egypt? Well, we're going to answer this question and many others. So let's go to Deuteronomy 28:68. And this is key. This is key. This is what is the foundational passage that is telling us that we should not be dependent on any of these systems of men. We should not be dependent on any of these systems of man. If Donald Trump or whatever administration that's in office saying that they're going to cut these different programs, we as a people, we should be like, okay, that means that we got to step up and take care of our own. We got to start taking care of our community. We have to start being concerned about, okay, some of these programs that are being cut. Let's just say if we cutting the housing in terms of what's that? The Section 8. If he's cutting that, people that are dependent on Section 8, we should be, as a people, reaching out to them, trying to see what we could do as a community to have them transition to be weaned off those systems. Now, of course, certain things, it's beyond our pay grade, but this is where we trust in the Most High, that the Most High is going to do exactly what he did to the Egyptians of the ancient times, or should I say Kemet, right? But here's the kicker. The Most High has given us the authority. If you understand the two witnesses, he's given us the authority to declare plagues, to literally speak plagues into existence. So anyway, let's get into it. Deuteronomy 28:68. It reads, and Yahawah shall bring thee into Egypt, Matzar Yam, again with ships, Anayah, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold makar unto your enemies, Ayabah, or actually Ayabai, for bondmen and bondwomen, abad yam, and no man shall buy you, Quanah. All right, let me read that again. And Yahawah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So we need to break this down. And I know some of you guys are probably asking, how is this connected to these different governmental programs, the governmental system in regards to our people? I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to break this down. But nevertheless, we're going to do some translation comparison. This is the same passage coming from the NIV Bible, and this is how it reads. Yahawah will send you back into Egypt on a journey. I said you should never make again. There you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. Let me read it one more time. Yahawah will send you back in ships to Egypt on a journey. I said you should never make again. There you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. This is the Message Bible translation or version of the same text. Yahawah will ship you back to Egypt by a road I promise you'd never see again. There you'll offer yourselves for sale, both men and women, as slaves to your enemies, and not a buyer to be found. All right, so let's bring this together. So again, send you back in ships to Egypt on a journey. That's the NIV translation of this passage. And when we look at journey, this is what it means from the Oxford: an act of traveling from one place to another, a long and often difficult process of personal change and development. So the NIV describes this consequence as a difficult process. So Yahawah shall bring thee into Egypt. So we're going to unpack this real quick, give some 101 on Deuteronomy 28:101, so that way you guys can understand. Right? The name Egypt is a Greek name. Let me say that again. The name Egypt is a Greek name. Right? The actual ancient name for the Egyptians are Kamat. Right? So, but when we look at Egypt, that is a Greek name. But anyway. All right. So when we look at here, Egypt, right? Look at what it says. Old English, the Egyptians, from French, Egypti. And then it just gives us the history of this word. But then when we get here, it says Amana Hekupta, corresponding to Egyptian, Hat Kapat, temple of the south, Patah. Forgive me if I'm butchering it. That's not my area. As far as the metal netter and all of that, that's not my area. But anyway, the creative god associated with Memphis, the ancient city of Egypt. Strictly one of the names of Memphis, it was taken by Greeks as the name of the whole country. The Egyptian name Kemet means black country, possibly in reference to the rich delta soil. The Arabic Misr which is derived from Mitzrayim, the name of a son of biblical Ham. But the key is Kemet or Kamat. All right, because Ham name is actually pronounced Kam in ancient Hebrew. And when we look at Kemet, it will be what? Kam. Anyway. All right, so this is what I read. Okay. So does the name Egypt mean bondage? Let's look at the definition of it as well. We see here upper and lower Egypt. All right, so we don't see the definition here. So the masculine plural Yam plus Mitzar forms the Hebrew word for the biblical pronunciation of this word for Egypt that transliterates to Egypt would be Matsar Yam or Mitzrayim. All right, Mitzrayim. All right, but anyway, the masculine plural Yam, that's this right here, plus Matsar forms the Hebrew word for Egypt. And this is what this is saying here. Okay. But notice what we see the definition here: a mound, besiegers, defense, fence, fortress, siege, stronghold, siege, enclosure. Okay, so when we go to the word matzar, again, it means to besiege. So matzar comes from the primitive root word tsar, which means confined, adversary, assault, beset, besiege. And then when we look at what besiege means, look at what it says: surround a place with armed forces in order to capture it or force its surrender. Lay siege. And then it goes on to say crowd around oppressively, surround and harass. And then we go to the definition of within Oxford to see what siege means, right? Well, this is besieged. I thought this was sieged, but anyway, actually it should be sieged. This is incorrect here. It should be siege, not besiege, because I'm looking at the definition down here. So that's an error. I got to correct this slide. But nevertheless, a military operation in which enemy forces surround a town or building, cutting off essential supplies with the aim of compelling them the surrender of those inside. All right. And this goes on and confirms this as well. So cutting off essential supplies with the aim of compelling those to surrender. All right. So let's go back to Exodus chapter 1. We're building here, building up the narrative here. Starting at verse 11, let's see what it says. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them. Let me read that again. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters, Matsayam, right? Let me see here. To afflict Anah, them with their burdens, Sabalath, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. Okay. Verse 12. But the more they afflicted them, Anath, the more they multiplied, Rabbah, and grew, Parat, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. Right? We're growing, right? This is what causing a lot of problems. This is why we see the opposition the way we see it. But nevertheless, verse 13, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve Abad with rigor, Parak, and they made their lives better, Marar, with hard quasha bondage, Abadah, and mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service, Abadah, in the field. All their service, Abadah, wherein they made them serve, was with rigor. All right. So the Egyptians' goal was to cut off essential supplies used by Israel with the goal of compelling them to surrender. And then when we look at this word bondage real quick, let's see what bondage means. Legal condition of a serf or slave, a serf, tenant, farmer, right? It says dwell, prepare, inhabitant, to be, exist, grow. All right. And then we go to the adjective definition of this word. The key here, we see here it says, in a state of a serf, unfree. That's the key, from bond, but unfree. tenant, farmer, holding land under a lord in return for customary service. We see husband, householder. All right, so this is giving us some additional information on this. But let's fast forward here. Let's fast forward because I don't want to spend a lot of time on here. So does the name Egypt mean bondage, right? We could say yes, and we could say no. Why? Because the original word Kemet, as I pointed out, means dark country, right? Or dark. So that's why I put yes or no, because Egypt itself, we see that that word is connected to siege and besiege, so that is bondage. That's why I put yes and no here. So Egypt's reputation, or Matsar Yam, reputation is connected to Israel because they had them bound. Right? Again, bring thee into Egypt means to be bound again by the spirit of Egypt. Let me say that again. In the prophecies of Deuteronomy 28:68, the consequences, the perpetual consequences, bring thee into Egypt means to be bound again by the spirit of Egypt. Let's go to Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14. Actually, you know what? I don't need to read that real quick. Let me go. You know what? I take that back. Let me read it because that is going to serve a purpose. Let me go back here. Exodus verse 13 and 14. I quote this whenever I wrap up my lives and even in our service. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of YAHAWAH, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them no more again forever. In other words, it's saying that the Egyptians are not going to have power over the Israelites ever again. Didn't mean that the Most High was wiping them out of existence. He's just saying that they will not have power over the Israelites again. All right. And we look at the word forever. Again, we see here eternity, always. Okay. Ancient times, continuous, lasting, long time, perpetual. So the Egyptians, Matsar Yam, as a nation, had their authority over Israel removed. So the Egyptians, the nation, as a nation, they, as I pointed out, they was not blotted out, but the control, that's what we're focusing on. That's what the Most High is making it clear to Israel. But their control and authority over Israel was removed forever. So what is spiritual Egypt? What is spiritual Egypt? So we dealt with the bondage portion of it, but we have to understand what is spiritual Egypt. Let's go to Revelation chapter 11, verse 8, and it's going to tell us what spiritual Egypt is. It says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the city, of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also Adonijah was crucified. All right, so we see that there is what? A spiritual Egypt, as well as a spiritual Sodom. All right, that's dealing with perversions. So bring thee into Egypt means to be bound again by the spirit of Egypt. So what was the backbone of the Egyptians' army YAHAWAH destroyed? And this is all key. It was their chariots and their horsemen. So though the Egyptians were defeated, yet Israel continued to give life to the Egyptians' defeated spirit. I'm going to prove to you that they kept giving them life. When I say they, the ancient Israelites. Deuteronomy 28:68. Let's go back here. And YAHAWAH shall bring thee into Egypt. We know we're dealing with spiritual Egypt, but it's still bondage because that's the key. He's saying he shall bring us back into what? Bondage. This is a perpetual consequence because Israel sinned before the Most High a number of times, and the results were captivity. Just read the book of Judges alone. You'll see multiple captivities. Again, Israel sinned before YAHAWAH, and YAHAWAH did what? Allowed them to go into bondage, allowed them to go into slavery. Okay? So, and YAHAWAH shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Highlight this here in your Bibles. No man shall buy you. That's key right here. We're going to break that down here shortly. Quanah. right? So buy, quana means purchase. Let me say that again. Buy, quana, it means purchase, recover, redeem. So that's giving you more of a better understanding of the text when it says, no man shall buy you. He said, no man shall purchase you. No man shall recover you. No man shall redeem you, including the system of man, right? So this is the definition here. Quana, we see here, to erect, to procure, especially by purchase, by implication, to own, attain, buy, redeem, right? And we can also add recover. So in the scripture, Egypt symbolizes the entire world. The entire world. All right, so let's go to Exodus chapter 6, verse 6. And this is what the Most High promised Israel while they were still in the Egyptian captivity. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am YAHAWAH, and I will bring you out from under the burden, Sabalah of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem Gaal, you with a stretched out Natah arm, Zarawah, and with great judgment. So he says that he was going to what? Redeem. He said, I will redeem. Right? Redeem, Gaal, means to avenge. It means to deliver, purchase, ransom. Again, redeemer, revenge. So Yahweh Elohim said that he will redeem, avenge, deliver, purchase, and provide a ransom for Israel with his stretched out arms. And the ransom is Christ. Yahweh Shah Hamashiach. No man shall buy you. In other words, again, Quana is what we're going to focus on here. No man shall redeem you. That's giving you proper clarity. No man shall redeem you. So Deuteronomy 28:68 is a prophecy that serves as a reminder that there is no salvation, no redemption in the system of man. That's where we're getting to. That's the point we're getting to. And this is why I brought up Deuteronomy 28:68. Because we are continuously being reminded that we are not to seek salvation in these systems of men. We should not be seeking redemption from the systems of men. All of us, one way or another, have been guilty of looking at being connected to the system of man as a form of salvation. I remember being in college, and some of you guys probably went here, experienced what I experienced. Went to college, went to, Oklahoma, Tulsa, right? And I remember, my scholarship got canceled, right? It got pulled. And so I had to get financial aid. But because my mother's income was too high, because she was in the military while I was being raised by my grandmother in Newark, New Jersey. But because of that, I didn't have the resources. So I had to leave school. I didn't want to go back to Newark, New Jersey and have the potential of getting into trouble until I was able to get back into school. So what did I do? I went into the military. And many of us have gone into different systems of men using it as a form of salvation. Some using Section 8 as a form of salvation. Some are have used, let's just say, affirmative action as a form of salvation. Whatever the programs are, welfare as a form of salvation. We are not to look at the system of men as a form of salvation. Many are looking at Donald Trump as being their savior. That's why they call MAGA the way that they call it. We are not supposed to look at what? The Democrats or the Republicans. We're not supposed to look at any of these political systems as a form of redemption. They are not supposed to be treated as if they are our saviors. And this is why you see so many of us crying out the way that many are, because we're losing touch. If we go to this passage right here, we'll understand that, hey, we're not supposed to be surprised when those systems fail us, because guess what? The scriptures make it clear that there's no good things that dwell in his flesh, that put no trust in who? Man. This is why I go back to when I talked about the mark of the beast, 666. It is the system of man, right? This is why I said it's an authentication system, a validation system. a system that we see our ancestors had to deal with when you deal with the fleur de lis when they got branded. You know, when they had to use tickets to basically get permission, you know, to travel different parts of the plantation. We still have that system of validation right now. We are the only people, when they write a bill, guess what? They always got to attach our community with other bills, right? Like I said, when they made those bills, the so-called civil rights bills, when they wrote those things out, they made it generic so that way everyone can benefit from it. But when they wrote bills again for the name stealers, guess what? They made sure they said Jewish, Jew. They made sure they put anti-Semitism in it and connected it with that community. When they was dealing with writing something for the Asian community, they made sure they put Asians in there. But when it comes to our community, they never put any reference to our people. So I encourage you, go back and read the civil rights bill. You will see it's generic. DEI is generic. It's generic. So Deuteronomy 28:68 is a prophecy that serves as a reminder that there is no salvation, there is no redemption in the systems of man, period. None. None. And this is why we see as a community, we keep being disappointed. Why are we being disappointed? Because many have put their salvation, their redemption, and attached it to a system of man. We're not supposed to trust man because man will what? Deceive you. Right? This flesh will always deceive us. Redemption can only come through Yahawah Elohim's outstretched arms and his great judgment. Let me say that again. Redemption can only come through Yahawah Elohim's outstretched arm and his great judgment. So Yahweh the Father is our Redeemer. Let me say that again. Yahweh the Father is our Redeemer. Through Yahweh the Father, his Son, the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, is the ransom. Let's prove it with scripture. Ransom comes from the primitive root word pod or pada, which means to release, preserve, deliver, and let be redeemed. Let me read it again. Ransom, padayan, comes from the primitive root word pod, which means to release, preserve, deliver, and let be redeemed. Let's go to Mark chapter 10, verse 45. Let's prove that Christ, he's not the how can I put it? He's not the Redeemer. He is the what? He is the ransom. So for even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life as a ransom. We see ransom for many. And then we could confirm this also with 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5 and 6. It reads, for there is one Elohim, one mediator between Elohim and men, the man Yahawashi, Messiah, Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all to be testified in due time. All right. All right. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5 further confirms this. But he was wounded, kalal, for our transgression. Pasha, he was bruised, daka, for our iniquities. The chastisement, masar or mawasar, for our peace was upon him. And with his stripes, kabarath, we are healed. Rapah. Let me read it one more time. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him. And with his stripes, we are healed. Verse 6. All we like sheep, sa'an, have gone astray. Tha'ai, we have turned everyone to his own way, and Yahweh hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. So the consequences in Deuteronomy 28 is Yahweh Elohim's great judgment to a disobedient nation. Let's go back here We're going to keep hitting Deuteronomy 20:68. We're going to keep hitting it. Let's go back here. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So again, you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies. That's what it's saying. We'll try to enter into agreements, trying to what? Circumvent the judgment. So in an attempt to avoid Elohim's great judgment, Yahweh's great judgment, Israel will attempt to engage into enter into agreements with Egypt, the very group that the Most High delivered them from and said that they won't have power over them ever again. Let's confirm this with Isaiah 30, starting at verse 1. Look at this. Woe. This is one of the woes here. Woe to the rebellious children. Woe, Yahweh, to the rebellious, YAHAWAH, children, saith Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Verse 2, that walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. So as you see here, even though Israel was delivered out of Egypt, when we read Exodus chapter 12, they came out of Egypt. But yet Israel continuously went back into Egypt. This right here is making it clear, out of fear with the Assyrian threat, Judah decided to go into Egypt and enter into agreements for protection by way of the Egyptians. Come on, family. This is why we got to make sure we teach the scripture with accuracy. You'll understand that Israel continuously defied the Most High instructions and kept going right back to the very place that the Most High delivered our ancestors from, that walked to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Verse 3, therefore shall the strength, ma'awaz, of Pharaoh be your shame, Bashah or Bashath, and the trust in the shadow, Sal or Salah, of Egypt, your confusion. That's the punishment for Israel deciding to go to Egypt again and try to partner up with Pharaoh for protection. So Yahweh Elohim pronounced a woe, a strong warning of judgment on the rebellious people of Judah, because they continued to refuse his help. So time and time again, they rejected Elohim and their hearts became hardened. A rebellious Judah formed an alliance with the Egyptians, as I just read. So Judah was facing a great threat by the Assyrians, and so the leaders believed that the nation's only hope was to form an alliance with Egypt. And what is the word hope, right? What does it mean? Thakwawa, right? In the Israelis, tikva, right? But what does it mean? Let's break it down real quick. It says here, a cord, literally a cord, and it means expectancy, expectation. So when we see cord, this also means lifeline. Let's prove it here. So hope, thakwawa, in Israeli tikva, literally means a cord. Hope simply means lifeline. Okay. So when we go to the Oxford Dictionary, look at what it says. Lifeline, a thing on which someone or something depends, or which provides a means of escape from a difficult situation. Entry number 2, a rope or line used for life saving. Typically one thrown to rescue someone in difficulties in water, or one used by sailors to secure themselves to a boat. So now let's go to Isaiah 31, because we're still dealing with Israel entering into agreements with the Egyptians. That's right, family. Israel continuously went back to Egypt. I'm going to share some additional passages proving this. All right. Isaiah 31, starting at verse 1. Look at what it says here. Woe. We see the woe again. Look at here. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek Yahawah. Let me read it again. Woe, YAHAWAH, to them that go down, right? Yarad Yam, to Egypt for help, Azarah, and stay on horses and trust in chariots, right? The horses and chariots is Egypt's or Kemet's. That's their special forces, right? Because they are many and in horsemen, because they are very ma'ad, strong, atzam, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek Yahawah. Verse 2, yet he also is wise and will bring evil and will not call back his words, but will rise again against the house of evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity. So Judah's hope was not to be found in the military might of Egypt, but rather in the power of Yahawah. So what was the backbone of the Egyptian army that was destroyed when they came out of Egypt? Guess what, family? It was their horses. It was their chariots, their special forces, as we covered earlier. Look here. Let's go back here. Look at here. Their chariots and their horsemen, right? Israel, and you could go back and look at it. I thought I was going to bring it back up, but I didn't go back, and I don't think I put it here. But you could go back in it, and you can look at Exodus chapter 14, and you'll see it was their horses, it was their chariots that was destroyed. So, and by this time, Egypt's special forces, their military recovered. So Israel is seeking salvation from the Egyptians because of their special forces. Israel is seeking salvation by going back to Egypt, going back into bondage, giving power to the very thing that they shouldn't have been given power to. Isaiah 31:3, look at what it says. Now the Egyptians are men, Adam, and not yours to say God, but now the Egyptians are men and not Elohim. Their horses flesh and not spirit. When Yahawah shall stretch out his hand, Yad, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that hoping shall fall down, and they shall fail together. Come on, family. We got to cut the ties of spiritual Egypt. We cannot keep trying to circumvent what the Most High is doing by trying to look for salvation from the systems of man, whether it be the DEI programs, whether it be this Section 8, whether it be affirmative action, because guess what? We know no matter what, everything that they write, the laws they put into place is to benefit their community first, to make sure that they can maximize, not for us to maximize. It's for them to maximize. All right. Even, I know we have made progress, right? Things have progressed compared to where our ancestors were, but guess what? We're still not free. Progress does not equate to being free. We are not free. We are not free like we think we are. If you don't own your home and you're making mortgage payments, stop making your mortgage payment. What's going to happen? And even if you don't have a mortgage, you don't pay the taxes on that house, what's going to happen? Anyway, now the Egyptians are men and not Elohim, and their horses flesh and not spirit. When Yahawah shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down, and they shall fail together. All right, let me look here. All right, okay. Now the Egyptians are men and not Yahawah. So Israel had to be reminded not to worship and idolize the Egyptians. Okay. So let's go to the etymology definition of the word now, just so we put things in this proper perspective. Now, it simply means at the present, immediately, right? So Judah had to be reminded of their past and their present and their now. So even right now, family, we have to be reminded that the Egyptians, they are just men, right? We know in the Kemet community, they pushing God, you be God, especially when you start getting into the 5%ers, you be God, and all that other stuff. But the Most High is telling us, don't put any credence into that doctrine, into that system, not just that system, but the system of man, period. Religion is a system of man. Christianity is a system of man. Catholicism is a system of man. Judaism is a system of man. Islam is a system of man. The Most High did not create any of those so-called religions. Abraham didn't create it. The ancient Israelites, none of them practiced these so-called Abrahamic faiths. Okay? So Judah had to be reminded of their past and their present and their now. Sounds familiar, family? Judah had to be reminded that in this present time, immediately, the Egyptians are men and they are not YAHAWAH. They are not supposed to be worshiped. They're not supposed to be elevated. Okay? So let's go to Ezekiel chapter 30, right? Let's further prove. Because I'm telling you, what you don't hear, many that call themselves teaching, for example, the second Exodus stuff, they're not teaching what I'm teaching you here. They're not showing you that Israel had a continuous addiction with Egypt. Even when you read what I just read to you in Isaiah, I proved to you that Israel kept going back to Egypt. Right? So now I'm going to prove to you what Ezekiel had to say about the Egyptians and Israel giving power to the Egyptians. Look what Ezekiel says. Ezekiel chapter 30, starting at verse 21. Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and lo, it shall not be bound up to be healed, to put a roller to bind it, to make it strong, to hold the sword. So the Most High is making it clear. Making it clear. Oh, I said comment here. Exactly, Pastor Kelly. Trying to call you an agent, please. Hey, go ahead. Let him call me an agent. Go ahead. Let him call me the agent. Because that's synonymous to like Elijah being called the troublemaker. Right? Because, you know, when they called me the agent, basically they telling me I'm the troublemaker. It's all good. They could call me all the names that they want. Right? But I know the Most High is pleased at what we're doing over here. Whether people want to accept it or reject it. One thing people could say over here, we standing on truth. So if they want to call me the agent, call me the agent. I don't even care. I don't even care. Don't even care. Because guess what? That's telling you that they respect the presence, right? When we show up, when we woke now show up, guess what? People have no other choice but to respect what we're doing, right? No matter what. Right? So guess what? Call me the troublemaker, call me the agent, call me whatever name. Right? It's all good. It is all good. But anyway, let's go back here. Right? Look at here. Ezekiel is highlighting that Israel call themselves trying to enter into agreements with the Egyptians, right? Trying to give them power. And look at what the Most High says through the Son of Man, which is Ezekiel in this passage. Look at what he says about Pharaoh. He says, Son of man, I have broken, right? Shabar, the arm, Zarawah of Pharaoh, Para'ah, king of Egypt, and lo, it shall be bound, Kabash, up to be healed, right? So notice what he's saying here. He said they tried to bound it up to be healed, right? And we see here, Rapawath, that's plural, right? The feminine plural, to put a roller to bind it, to make it strong, to hold the sword. So when we see that word to be healed, right? This is what? It's continuously, right? Rapah, right? Wath. So that's the plural. So this is a constant thing that Israel is doing, trying to what? Lift up the arms of Pharaoh, trying to give him power that the Most High made it clear that the Egyptians will never have. Remember, we read from Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. Fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of YAHAWAH. These Egyptians that you see here today will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you, but guess what? We have to hold our peace. So the Most High promised Israel that the Egyptians will never have power over them again, but Israel kept trying to give them the power. But the Most High is like, look, I'm breaking his arms because I'm going to uphold my promise that I made with you guys. I promised you when you came out of Egypt, guess what? They will never have power over you again. No matter how many times you try to give them the power, I'm going to keep breaking their arms. That's what this passage is saying. It says, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and lo, it shall not be bound up to be healed, to put a roller, to bind it, to make it strong, to hold the sword. Look at this right here. Therefore saith Yahawah Elohim, behold, I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and will break his arms. Look at what the Most High said, and will break his arms. In other words, every time we try to give the power to the Egyptians, try to help the Egyptians go through this healing process, the Most High said, I'm going to break his arms again. That dependency, that thing that you're trying to keep attached to, the Most High says he's going to keep breaking it. Because he's not going to let that thing have power over you ever again, no matter what it is. The Most High said he's going to continue to break it. If you have dependencies on drinking, dependencies on smoking, or just dealing with people in general that you know you should not be dealing with, the Most High said he's going to keep messing up that situation. He's still going to break it. He's going to make it bitter. He's going to make it so that way it's never good to you. It's never going to benefit you like you think it is. He says he's going to keep breaking it, keep breaking it. Here he's saying, therefore, thus saith Yahawah Elohim, behold, I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and will break his arms. See, that's a future prophecy at this time. No matter how many times they keep strengthening his arms, the Most High said, I'm going to break it again. So here it is. Israel is in Egypt. They have lifted up the arms of Pharaoh, and now the Most High is telling them he's going to break it again. He's going to break it again and show them that Pharaoh will never, Egypt will never have power over them again, even if they try to give it to him. Right? Look at this here. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and will disperse them through the countries. That's right. The Egyptians got scattered, not to the four corners, but they got scattered. So Egypt, the nation, existence was not blotted out, but their control and authority over Israel was removed forever. Let me say that again. The Egyptians, Kemet, the nation's existence was not blotted out, but their control and authority over Israel was removed forever. Egypt's reputation is connected to Israel because they held them bound. Now look at here. I'm going to give you some additional proof here. Additional proof that Israel continued to give the power to the Egyptians. 1 Kings chapter 23, starting at verse 34. Look at what it says. It reads, and Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, in the room of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. Look at here. Let me read that again. The Pharaoh, this is Egypt. The Egyptian Pharaoh, the Egyptian king, made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah, his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. So the Egyptian Pharaoh they gave him the authority to be able to anoint a king and also give the name to the king, changed its name, Jehoiakim, and took Jehoaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. So we have the king of Israel now being put in place by the king of Egypt, and now the king of Israel is paying taxes, paying homage to the king of Egypt. Come on, family. It's right here in the scriptures. Israel continuously went back to Egypt. Guess what? Many of us, the Most High delivered us out of the projects, but guess what? We still have a project mentality. We don't know how to let the projects go. We don't know how to let our past go. We keep bringing it up when we think that it's convenient, not realizing it's making the situation worse. So again, Jehoiakim gave the silver and gave the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land of everyone according to his taxation, and to give it unto Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother was named Zebudah, can't even pronounce it, Zebudah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. All right, excuse me for butchering the word, or the name. Verse 37, and he did that which was evil in the sight of YAHAWAH. Why? Because he's answering to the authority of Pharaoh. And as we see here, he's honoring Pharaoh's commandment. Look at here. He taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. Doesn't that sound like many of us? Doesn't that sound like many of us? We give more credence and give more weight to the commandments of man, but not the commandments of the Most High. That's what the church has taught us. We're not under the law. But guess what? You make sure that you abide by the laws of the land. You make sure you abide by the laws of the city that you live in. Matter of fact, you created your own laws. The same people saying we're not under the law, guess what? In their church, they have bylaws. Who wrote those bylaws? Men. So again, and Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. Okay. Skipping now to 37. And he did that which was evil in the sight of YAHAWAH, according to all that his fathers had done. So Jehoiakim was placed on the throne by Egypt and had his name changed by Pharaoh Necho, changed from Eliakim to Jehoiakim. By forcing a name change, Pharaoh Necho was indicating Egypt's dominance and a mark of Jehoiakim's subjection. All right, but let's go to another scripture here to further prove that Israel was addicted to Egypt, could not let Egypt go. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 11. Right, this is during the Babylonian captivity. Right, look at here, and this is during the third invasion. Right, this is getting ready to the threat of the third invasion of the Babylonians to come. Right, because the Babylonians they invaded Jerusalem 3 times. So this is now on the eve of the third invasion. Right, verse 11. It says here, Jeremiah 44, starting at verse 11. Thus saith YAHAWAH of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I will set my face against you for evil and to cut off Judah. Well, why? Look at here, verse 12. And I will take the remnant of Judah that have set their faces to go into where? The land of Egypt. So instead of following the Most High's instructions, they were supposed to, when he told them to flee Babylon, he was telling them to go back to Israel, to go back to their native land. But instead, out of fear, right, Judah, instead of going to their native land, they fled to Egypt. They went to find safety in Egypt. Matter of fact, think about it. When Joseph, right, now we're dealing with Joseph and Mary, right? Where did they go at to seek safety? They went right into Egypt, right? So, and I will take the remnant of Judah that have set their faces to go into the land of Egypt to sojourn there, and they shall be consumed. They shall all be consumed, and fall in the land of Egypt. They shall even be consumed by the sword and by the famine. They shall die from the least even unto the greatest. By the sword and by the famine, they shall be an execration and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach. For I will punish them that dwell in the land of Egypt, as I have punished Jerusalem, by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence. Verse 14. So that none of the remnant of Judah, which are gone into the land of Egypt to sojourn there, shall escape or remain, that they should return into the land of Judah, to the which they have a desire to return, to dwell there, for none shall return but such as shall escape. So the Most High still allowed them, many of them, to escape. And this is where when we start getting into Nehemiah chapter 1, Nehemiah is picking up after the punishment was given here. Because look at here. Then all the men who knew that their wives had burned incense unto other deities, and all the women who stood by a great multitude, even all the people who dwelt in the land of Egypt, come on, family, it's just this simple. And Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, So Israel is in Egypt, idol worshiping and everything. And they forced Jeremiah to go with them. Okay. So in a nutshell, family, wrapping this up, you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as indentured servants, right? That's dealing with Deuteronomy 28:68 again, give you proper clarity. But no one will what? Buy you. The proper understanding of this, but no one will what? Redeem you, right? And that's it, family. So we're not supposed to put any trust. We are not supposed to take any of these so-called governmental systems and use it as a form of salvation. Your job, guess what? No matter where you work at, whether it's for the government or not for the government, you are not to allow that business to become your God, to become your deity, to become your salvation, to become your savior. I know all of us done this before. I know I have. Back in the day, you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get ahead. This job is going to pay you even more money. And so you just automatically start visualizing what that job is going to do for you, how it's going to make things easier for you, how you're going to live like a first round draft pick, or what you're going to do if you get this job, that this job is going to be the answer to all things. And not knowingly that you began to put this job into a place that it is a form of salvation. So what happened? You just know you got this job, and what happened? All of a sudden, you find out that you didn't get the position. That job was given to someone else. That opportunity was given to someone else. And what happens? Now you're getting into what? A low place, because the Most High had to humble you, because you started idolizing that position. You started idolizing what that position would do for you. You started idolizing and allowing that position to become a form of a redeemer for you, a savior for you. And see, this is why you see the Trump administration doing what it's doing, because guess what? He believes that the way that many of the people are looking at every aspect of the government is like a form of a savior to them. No, we take the stand just like the Hebrew men, because those Hebrew men in Daniel, they worked for the government. Daniel worked for the government. But when the government told them to do something to compromise what they believe, their relationship with the Most High and the law, statutes, and commandments, the three Hebrew young men said, no, we can't do that. No, we're not worshiping those idols. We're not bowing down. We rather, throw us into the fire. And if YAHAWAH don't save us, guess what? He's done more than enough. So they took a stand, even though they were working what? You could say that they were working government positions. Come on, family. It's right there in the scriptures. Right there in the scriptures. Daniel, chapter 1, it says what? Daniel purposed in his heart that he will not what? Defile himself. So even though he was in captivity, he's like, you know what? I just have to go down with the ship. I'm not going to defile myself. I'm not going to eat that swine, because that's what the food of the kings, the food from the king's table, they were eating swine. You could read the Maccabees. That'll prove it. So again, family, I really appreciate the love and support. And that's the lesson for today. So I just want to make sure you guys understand, none of these man-made systems, we should not be idolizing them. We should not be getting into a frenzy. We should not be getting into a sunken, depressed state, because we're not supposed to be idolizing none of this stuff. Now, of course, it's okay to have a concern. Cast your cares to the Most High. That's the word, right? David had to do that in Psalms 55. He prayed for the Most High to punish his son and all those that came against him. But in the end, he cast his what? Cares to the Most High for him to what? Handle the situation. Not for him to handle it. Most High, you handle the situation. I'm just expressing to you what I want you to do. I would like you to take them out. But I'm going to cast my cares to you. And because I know no matter what, even though I may feel a certain way, you're going to make sure that you handle things in a way that's for my best interest. Come on, family. Just that simple. So again, family, be encouraged. I just want to share this last minute word with you guys, to give you a word of encouragement, to for you guys not to get upset, for you guys not to be in a sunken place. for you guys not to be in this doom and gloom, because I know that many people are teaching scriptures, from a doom and gloom. Every time you turn around, they're teaching events, tragedies, things that's happening instead of speaking life. Anyway, family, let me give a quick shout out here. It looks like I see a super chat here. I didn't even catch it here. My apology, D Money. Thank you for the love and support. Shalom, blessings to you, brother. Looking forward to this lesson. D Money, I apologize for not seeing this early on, because I would have thanked you early on in this lesson. Family, let's show D Money some love and support. Thank you again, my brother, for the contributions tonight. And family, I want to encourage you guys, like this video. Make sure we have the likes up, right? I think right now we had 194 likes. Let's get those likes up and share the video. Share it. If you have a YouTube channel, share it on it. Share the video. That's how it'll help us get out of this shadow banning, because literally YouTube just this past week put me into that shadow ban, right? They've been doing some very questionable things with the channel. Not going to get into the specifics. So even after this, we conclude this lesson, I encourage you guys to go and post comments inside the comment section, because that's going to help with what they call the reachability, right? When they see when comments are being registered, that's going to help break this algorithm or break this shadow ban that they place me in. All right. And if you think that you're still subscribed to the channel, double check to make sure, because YouTube have been unsubscribing subscribers. I found out a few months ago that over the duration of this channel, YouTube has deleted over 24,000 subscribers. They removed over 24,000 subscribers. So right now, I believe we're sitting at like 84,000, right? So we should be easily over 100,000 subscribers. But these are the things that YouTube is doing. All right. But it's all good, because guess what? I don't idolize this system. It's still a system of man. There's still a system of man, because the Most High has the final say, right? Remember that song, who has the final say? YAHAWAH has the final say. Guess what? I have no reason to fear, right? Because the Most High has the final say. All we're going to do is sit back and watch how the Most High fight for us. Hallelujah. So with that being said, family, really appreciate all you guys for tuning in tonight. Have a blessed remainder of the night. Get proper rest. And we'll do this again. If not tomorrow, we'll be back here on Thursday. And I have a video I'm working on that I'm going to upload. Initially, I was going to do a teaching on it. I may still do a teaching on it, but I'm going to upload it, some sources from the name stealers, further proving who's who and who's not. So with that being said, family, in the words of YAHAWAH that he gave to Moses to give to the children of Israel in Exodus chapter 13, verse 14, Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14, fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of YAHAWAH. These Egyptians that you see here today will not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you. But here's the kicker, family. We have to hold our peace. Can't go back. Can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis
chapter 10. These were the children of Israel, according